My name is Dirk Calamijn. I work with the Belgian Federal Police, and in the next couple of sessions we will have a look at THB, what the nature of this crime is and why we, the border guards, should be involved. Well, I mean, you probably know it stands for trafficking in human beings. But did you know it is a gross violation of fundamental rights, a crime, a form of organized crime, and most importantly, do you know that you, the border guard, might be a victim's one and only chance to be saved? In this session we will take a look at what trafficking in human beings, THB, is. What's so special about it and why we, the border guards, should be concerned. There will be some more video clips too, so don't run away when first we need to take a look at a bit of theory. The EU directive in general takes a victim-centered approach. It's replacing the former EU framework of 2002, broadening the view from what used to be mainly prosecution to what is now prevention, prosecution, protection, the so-called 3 Ps, with partnership as a fourth one. During our sessions you'll find we kept the same approach in mind, but I suggest that at least you personally take a look at this very interesting directive and find half an hour to check or even have a group discussion about the way it has been implemented nationally. Back to our victims where, for example, authorities shall be entitled not to prosecute or impose penalties on victims for their involvement in criminal activities which they have been compelled to commit as a direct consequence of their situation. Just try to think of some of these activities: illegal entry, moonlighting, prostitution, the use of fake documents could be some of them, depending on your national law. The directive foresees an assistance and support as soon as there is a reasonable grounds indication for believing the person might be a potential victim. It's important to note that this should not, I repeat, not be conditional on the victim's willingness to cooperate in the criminal investigation. Victims should be referred to further assistance and support. All this should be on a consensual and informed basis where relevant, covering information on a reflection and recovery period and asylum. This includes the use of interpretation services where appropriate, and attention for special needs such as pregnancy, health, or persons having suffered serious violence. Not all victims of trafficking are refugees, but some of them may be in need of international protection. They should not be returned to a territory where they might be in serious danger. Actually, this is a basic fundamental principle in international refugee law, and it is known as the principle of non-refoulement. Trafficking in human beings is often mistaken for another criminal offense and linked to prostitution, moonlighting, or other forms of irregular labor. Or it could even be underrated or underestimated for an ordinary fight between partners. Authorities might find these offences easier to prosecute. For the border guard, it may be difficult to spot the difference between a case of migrant smuggling and human trafficking. This may lead to trafficking cases not being investigated, victims not receiving help, and criminals not being prosecuted as they should be. In both cases, human trafficking and people smuggling, persons may be moved illegally across the border, where it is often a huge challenge to spot a planned or actual exploitation. Apprehended traffickers will often try to make a human trafficking case look like a case of people smuggling, illegal border crossing or illegal stay in a country, in order to prevent a thorough investigation. Victims may think they are being smuggled, even when they're actually being trafficked. However, the purpose of smuggling is to move a person across a border illegally, where the purpose of human trafficking is to exploit a human being for gain or other benefits. But how do we spot the difference? A number of factors can be identified which help distinguish between smuggling and trafficking. Firstly, in the case of trafficking, it's not essential whether a person entered the country illegally or not, whereas smuggling is characterized by illegal entry. Smuggling requires international movement, something that is, again, not essential for trafficking. Thirdly, according to the definition in the Directive 2011-36, and in the case of adults, trafficking is carried out with the use of coercion and/or deception. Smuggling isn't, indicating that smuggling is a voluntary act on the part of those who are being smuggled. Trafficking also involves subsequent exploitation of people, while the services of smugglers usually end when people reach their destination. Being realistic and recognizing that the distinction between both phenomena can be blurred, the purpose of exploitation might be considered a key element in the difference between THP and smuggling of people. Now, what are the available tools to help us identify a victim or a potential victim of THP? Essentially, the profile might give a hint. There could be some indicators, maybe you'll find some material evidence, and finally, the interview could be conclusive for your diagnosis. Frontex supports the border guards with a number of profiles. This handbook should be available in your service. You'll probably remark that these are the 2012 profiles, so your first conclusion that profiles could change in time and place is correct. For children, for example, while both boys and girls may be trafficked, the profiles of the trafficked children differ according to demand and the place of destination. This profile may also change as the child matures. For example, in some regions, both boys and girls are trafficked from rural or semi-urban areas into the big city to work as child domestic laborers. Boys, however, tend to move on from domestic labor as they approach adolescence and may end up being exploited in agriculture, manufacturing, or service industries. Girls are more likely to stay in child domestic labor for longer. The same goes for indicators, hints, clues, or a signal indicating that something is wrong and that can also change in time and place. Indicators are basically what a textbook victim would look like. However, we all know that in reality, you rarely get a textbook victim, and as a result of the victim's experience or the way he or she has been coached and told to act by the trafficker, for example, he or she may act completely opposite to what we would expect. Instead of looking timid and withdrawn, the victim may display signs of aggression. More indicators will give greater certainty, but in many cases, it will only be this one small sign or quality that will strike the experienced border guard and that may lead to a further investigation. That's why we sometimes say that 0 + 0 + 0 + 0 makes 1. Small pieces of meaningless information, when put together, could eventually show you a very meaningful picture. We're making a difference between behavioral indicators, appearance and other indicators. Let's have a look at this clip where Dutch police stop a car. It's not happening at a border, but it could just as well be.
Goedemiddag meneer, verkeerscontrole. Wilt u een motor even uitzien? Oké, dank u wel. Ik wil graag uw rij- en kentekenbewijs even inzien.
Weet je maar mee, maar even kijken. Ja, hier mijn rijbewijs. Kentekenbewijs ik niet bij.
Oké, goed, we controleren uw rijbewijs even. Goedemiddag dames, hoe gaat het met u?
We spreken geen Nederlands hoor.
Spreek je geen Nederlands?
Nee,
Zou ik graag wat...
We zijn net aangekomen uit Roemenië, ik kom net van Schiphol.
Oké, zou ik graag wat identificatiebewijzen willen zien? Paspoort, rijbewijs, iets dergelijks.
Ja, die heb ik wel.
Oh, ik zie dat u meerdere paspoorten bij zich heeft. Ik zou ze graag allemaal even willen inzien.
Nou, ik geef ze wel even van de dames. Die is van haar.
Ja, dank u wel. Oké, dan geeft u anders 3 ook maar even. Dan kunnen we toch even controleren, weet u zeker dat ze eventueel goed zijn.
Is allemaal in orde hoor, weet ik
Ja,
wel
prima.
zeker.
Dat weet ik maar zeker weten is beter. Kom zo bij je terug, vast bedankt.
Zeg, als jij dit even zou willen controleren. Komen allemaal niet veel. Oké.
Uw rijbewijs. Bedankt voor de medewerking. Ik wens u verder nog een prettige dag verder.
Is goed.
We were talking about the fact that 0 plus 0 plus 0 can make 1. And here one of your first questions should be whether someone is behaving the way you would expect them to be. Do you think a person is in any way avoiding contact with control authorities? Could it be the passenger arrived as part of a group but is presenting him or herself at the border control as an individual? Did you get the impression people are trying to pretend not to know each other? For example, by going in separate lanes. Or maybe you will see extremes of behavior, a person being overly submissive, overconfident, overreacting, etc. Is a person showing signs of being controlled, passive when spoken to alone, avoiding eye contact, showing fear? Children might be frightened, very shy, or they might not show the affection a child would normally show towards its parents. All these signals and clues are behavioral indicators. Where the appearance of victims is concerned, you could come across scars and bruises as signs of abuse or assault, signs of self-harm, signs of potential substance abuse, alcohol, drugs. A person's clothing and all possessions could strike you as not consistent with his or her alleged situation or the economic circumstances he or she is coming from. Your attention could be drawn by the age, gender, clothing, luggage, and in general items that would fit or support the profile of a potential victim or victim of a specific form of trafficking, such as labor exploitation, sexual exploitation, etc. Other classic indicators are that victims or potential victims could not be personally carrying or presenting their travel documents, or that they would be presenting forged documents or documents from a lookalike. Take a look at supporting documents, such as tickets, money, invitations. In the first line, the border guard may already need to check whether the person is able to fill in some details on his or her identity, company, origin and destination. Be aware of such things as a person having been submitted to possible voodoo or other ritual practices. There may be signs of recruitment through the internet, deceptive grooming. And here, some investigation on the internet, just Google human trafficking, and taking a look at the information available at work will be a great help to familiarize yourself with the relevant current MOs, the way traffickers operate. We could continue knowing that we can and will never be complete and that, again, the indicators will change in time and place. In this session we've seen that THB can be blurred by or mistaken for other forms of crime. We had a look at the difference between trafficking and the smuggling of people. Profiles, indicators, material evidence and the interview will help us to identify a victim. A person's behavior or appearance or actually many other things may strike you, the experienced border guard, as an indicator. In the next sessions we will discuss a good way to react and a further approach in second line.